Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I've mentioned Fort Collins before because Fort Collins is a town involved in the story with Timothy Masters, the man who was convicted of a murder he did not commit, spent 10 years in prison, and then got out and eventually not only proved his innocence, but got apologies from various people in power. And it was a bizarre case and a tragedy in the fact that he spent 10 years of his life in prison. And I co-wrote a book with him about that called Drawn to Injustice. But Edward sent me notes, and Steve, checked this story out from the Denver Post by Jacob Factor. Fort Collins police pepper sprayed a man in the face from 2 inches away while attempting to ticket him. And this is according to a lawsuit. And so the man is suing Fort Collins police and the 2 officers, alleging they violated his constitutional rights. And so here's the big question. Let's suppose the police walk up to you. You're not in a vehicle. They just walk up to you. And they go, "We think you're doing something wrong." You say, "Okay." You go, "What's your name?" And you tell them. And they go, "Well, here's what we think you're doing wrong." You go, "Okay." So they go, "We're going to give you a ticket for that." You go, "Oh, okay." And then they fill the ticket out and they hand it to you. And you go, "Don't want to take it." Do you have to accept the ticket? And the interesting thing is, no, you don't. I would advise you to, but you don't have to accept it. And if they say, "Well, there's a ticket," and you just walk away, you're not under arrest. They're just trying to hand you something. And if you walk away from it, well, you don't know when your court date is. You might miss that. You might wind up being defaulted and bad things might happen to you. I would advise you to take it, but I don't believe they can force you to take it. So a man this week sued Fort Collins and 2 of its police officers, alleging that in 2021, they used excessive force and pepper sprayed him while attempting to issue him a summons for a reported trespassing incident. Now, attorneys for the man filed the civil suit recently, said the police officers violated his First, Fourth, and 14th Amendment rights when they used excessive force and wrongfully seized and arrested him back in 2021. The lawsuit names the city of Fort Collins and the 2 officers and state their actions caused the man to endure pain, suffering, humiliation, emotional distress, anxiety, terror, attorney fees, and other damages. Now, you notice the attorney fees are not actually a physical sensation the way that suffering and humiliation is. But in 2021, the man and some friends were out drinking after his father had passed away a month prior. At about 1:50 in the morning, officers contacted him near the intersection of College and Mountain Avenues in Old Town Fort Collins about a reported trespassing on the roof of a nearby bar. Somebody said, "Hey, there's people on that roof." Now, the man was not on the roof. He was down in the streets when the officers contacted him. But he explained that the group had gone up on the rooftop. And him and someone else were looking for a group who had pushed their female friend. So they'd gone up there to get a better view, to look around to see who might be out there. And the lawsuit says the officers ignored these comments, and their inaction and lack of concern for the man's girlfriend led the other man to begin making comments critical of the police officers. So they're trying to explain to the police officers, "We're looking for somebody that we think broke the law." And he says the police don't seem to care. Now, the footage released of the incident with the lawsuit's announcement says that the man saying the officers don't care about his friend and making other comments about the officers is on the video. An officer wrote the man a summons for the trespassing report, but he refused to take the summons, which is within his rights according to the lawsuit. And again, if someone hands you something, there's no law that says you must accept it. I've actually walked up to somebody to serve them with a complaint, which I'm allowed to do as an attorney in the state of Michigan. I go, "Here, you're being sued." And they go, "I'm not taking that." And I go, "I don't care." I drop it and I walk away. I actually had a guy come running after me and try handing it back to me. And I look at him and I go, "Wow, it's in your hands, isn't it?" The lawsuit alleges that one of the officers was angry about the comments and decided to retaliate. So when the man did not take the summons, the other officer took it from the first officer and attempted to give it to the man. So the officer, demonstrating that he knew that the plaintiff had the right to decline accepting the physical summons, told him if he didn't have the summons, he wouldn't know his court date. And then when he missed the court date, a warrant would issue for his arrest. Yes, Mr. Obvious, thank you for telling us what we all already know. So the man said he'd have his attorney find out the court date so he could attend, but the police officer walked toward him and tried again to give him the summons. The man then pushed the officer's hand away from his body, and this is all again on the footage, and at that point, the officer grabbed the man by the jacket. The man then went to the ground, and the officers attempted to detain him. Why are they trying to detain him now? Because he pushed one of their hands away? During the struggle, officers gave him several commands that the lawsuit states he was unable to comply with because they were using force against him. And at that point, one of the officers fired his pepper spray directly into the man's face from 2 inches away. He was then put in jail for 36 hours and charged with obstructing a peace officer and resisting arrest. Now, let's back up and go, obstructing a peace officer doing what? Obstructing him doing what? If he hands you something and you don't take it, are you obstructing him? And likewise, when he puts his hand close to you and you push his hand away, are you resisting arrest? Apparently you're resisting arrest when they tackle you, pepper spray you, and you put up a fight. All charges were dismissed. The lawsuit states that after the man got out of jail, he was functionally blind due to the pepper spray, couldn't work for several days, and still has vision problems 2 years later. He filed a complaint against the officer, an administrative complaint, and the Fort Collins Police Service's Professional Standards Unit exonerated him for his actions, but the attorney for the man received a copy of the report through an open records request. Incredibly, the 29-page report openly admitted that the defendant officers had no lawful reason to detain or use force on the plaintiff. Internal Affairs plainly found multiple policy violations by the officers, both with respect to the unlawful seizure and with respect to the excessive force utilized. Fort Collins Police Services did not provide a statement in response to the lawsuit, but said in an email they plan on releasing information on social media later on down the road. So again, I've seen this, by the way, I've mentioned before, occasionally I go down the rabbit hole of police stops on YouTube and police chases. Apparently in Arkansas, no one stops for the police. That's just the impression you get after a while of watching police chases because so many of them are from Arkansas. But I've seen it before where a police officer walks up to somebody and goes, "Here's your ticket." The person sitting in their car goes, "I don't want it." Now, I've seen an officer reach over and put it underneath the windshield wiper of the car and walk away. I've also seen an officer throw it in the car, and I've seen an officer just kind of like drop it into the car. And I have seen someone pick it up and go to throw it out the window. And I've seen an officer say, "If you throw that out the window in front of me, I'm going to ticket you for littering." And that's not that crazy of a notion, because once it's in your possession and you take control of it, for you to throw it out the window, you would be littering. Now, if you rolled your window up and the officer dropped it on the ground, they'd be littering, and you would not have possession of the summons. Now, I'm sure you're aware that the police are told, write someone a ticket and give it to them. But if the person refuses to accept the ticket, especially they do it on body cam, you've got a body cam that shows this image of your hand going out with a ticket towards the other person and them saying, "I don't want that." What the police officer should do is explain there's a date on that you might want to know about and drop it at their feet. Because I doubt the cop will write themselves up for littering, okay? And if you choose to turn around and walk away from that summons on the ground, that's on you. But that is a choice you have. And so for them to say, if you don't want to take the summons from us, we're going to pepper spray you, throw you in jail for 36 hours, and let it shake out that way, that is what we call an overreaction. Just a little bit. So we'll see what happens here. But when I see Fort Collins in the news, I think my friend Timothy Masters, who I stay in touch with, by the way, nice guy, and Fort Collins, doesn't surprise me. Their police pepper sprayed a man in the face from 2 inches away while attempting to ticket him. And then when that didn't work, they arrested him for resisting arrest. Jacob Factor wrote it for the Denver Post. Edward sent it to me. Thanks a lot. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. How does the guy who drives a snowplow get to work in the morning?